Welcome to the 5:30 p.m. September 26, 2023 presentations City Council meeting. We do have a quorum, so I'll call this meeting to order. Would you please join me in a moment of silence? And the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, would you please read the rules to speak?
Yes, sir. This is a city council meeting to hear special recognitions and presentations. Council will not take formal action on the agenda items. All individuals wishing to speak may do so under petitions and requests. No sign-up card is required. Citizens will be given 3 minutes to speak. All sign-up cards and exhibits being submitted to City Council should be placed in the box on the table.
Thank you very much. City Manager.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. The first agenda item is under special recognition and presentations. The employee for the month of September 2023, we'd like to recognize Tammy Weiner from the Finance Department, and Terry Butler will do the presentation. We may have a police escort up there for Tammy too, right?
Employee of the month is in the finance department. She's been there a while. She also wears many hats. Recently, she has adorned the hat of budget, so she's been doing a lot of our budget stuff. She also has been doing the employee benefits and salary portion. And if you understand budget, it takes about 9 to 10 months to do an annual budget, and salaries and benefits is by far the hardest part of the budget. So we have a few of the limitations we have in the software. Tammy was able to work around those, put them into these ginormous spreadsheets, figure out how to sort them and work them, run a variety of scenarios based on unions, based on COLA, and just asked over and over and over to do the same thing for different numbers. So that's why I nominated her, and I'm glad to see you here. I appreciate it. Want to say anything?
City Employee of the Month, Tammy Weiner. Correct? No, I got one thing right tonight. But we appreciate you, and I know that they do, because clearly, as I always said, this isn't a hit. It's like they can't do what they do without you. And that's just really hot. Yes, see, she knows that. Congratulations. Let's do a picture somewhere.
And Mayor, since this is a unique opportunity, we have two other Wainers that are city employees, and I would like to get a family photo of you guys.
I would too. Had me confused when I saw the name.
She's the quiet one. This way.
You guys are to do that.
And thanks to the Weiner family for all that you do every day for our city. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Next item is 4B, which is Heather Kenny, our Special Projects Coordinator, will present a special project, a green belt project that we did on the grants improvement process. And we do the Lean Six Sigma projects periodically. When we have a complex one, we like to bring that forward to the City Council. And Heather's done an outstanding job with this project.
Good evening. My name is Heather Kenny, and I am the Special Projects Coordinator for the city. And one of my responsibilities is to assist with and oversee grants management. So for my Lean Six Sigma Greenbelt Certification project, I worked with a team of employees across several city departments in order to improve the efficiency of our grants process. This was a Lean Six project, so we did follow the DMAIC format, which is to define, measure, analyze the problem, and then to improve the process and create a control plan. There were 3 unique sets of stakeholders that we considered during this process. Lean Six Sigma is a customer-focused format, and for an internal process like this, we were looking at 3 sets of customers. Those were the funders themselves at the state and federal and local levels, the leadership and citizenship of the city, the transparency for them to know what we're doing with our grant funding, as well as our employees that work with these grants as part of their daily responsibilities. We did a voice of the customer analysis, including researching funder requirements. We did an internal survey, and we did needs assessment meetings with each department. Once our stakeholders were defined, we developed 3 areas of focus for the project. Our first goal was regulatory compliance. The city is currently managing nearly $30 million in grant funding at the federal, state, and local levels, and another $10 million in applications are either in progress or have been submitted and are awaiting approval. The oversight exists in the form of federal regulations, state statutes, and funder guidelines. We're also subject to an annual federal audit, so regulations and compliance are very important. Our second goal was communication. We wanted to create transparency and clarity for all of the stakeholders, both in the process and procedures for those working with grants, as well as to provide access to a real-time snapshot of our current grants at any given moment. This diagram represents our starting point. In the old process, you can see that there are a lot of handoffs that were happening. There were a lot of opportunities for missteps as well as additional or unnecessary steps in the process. And this really evolved out of necessity as our grant portfolio grew and because the transition to technology happened at different rates depending on the funder. And so the process came together in pieces and it really needed to be overhauled to be cohesive. Our last goal was to make the grants management process easier for the users by improving efficiency and eliminating that extra work. Through our voice of the customer analysis, we looked at different areas for improvement in the process, and we narrowed down our focus with emphasis on the front end, the finding and applying for grants. Then we also improved our tracking and our record-keeping practices. So the outcome of this was that our team developed an online internal website through Microsoft SharePoint, which we are calling Grants Point. It's a resource hub for employees, and we've housed each of the tools that we created through the project. The first tool that can be accessed through Grants Point is the Grant Search Assistance. This is a search request form. The city has access to an excellent search engine through eCivis, thanks to our membership in the Florida League of Cities. We also have access to online public search tools through the government websites as well. Our employees complete a search form, and then they receive responses by email whenever applicable grants are found. The next resource that we incorporated was an automated approvals process. This is where a lot of the efficiency came in. For compliance reasons, we need to be tracking our application approvals. This tool captures the critical information about each grant from the very beginning, from step 1. That way the department and city leadership can make informed decisions when approving these requests to apply for funding. Next, we incorporated a live grants tracking database, which lists information on all of our currently active and upcoming grants, as well as currently closed grants. It includes their status and amounts, and a brief description of what the funding is being used for in order to benefit our citizenship. One of the primary compliance requirements that we have for funding is to maintain grant files for each program. We've created a cloud-based grant file storage through the Grants Point site. Access to grant files can be controlled by the site administrator, and it allows assigned department personnel to access their grant files on demand. The resource site also contains a collection of useful tools to assist in grants management tasks. This includes process instructions, videos, checklists, commonly used forms, helpful links, a time and effort tracker, as well as the opportunity to set calendar reminders for grants reporting tasks. And finally, the other important step that we took was to update the administrative policy on grants for the city to reflect our updated processes and resources. This is also accessible on the Grants Point site, and we provided a staff training on the new processes and use of the new resource hub. Here you see a diagram of our resulting process, the new process after the changes that we made. I don't know if you can see on the screen, but the blue lines that are there represent automation that we created through Microsoft Power Automate. In those handoffs, as soon as the user submits information, it is instantaneously transferred to the next step. So that saved us a lot of time. For control of this project, we are able to collect metrics through the Grants Point site that will allow us to seek out areas where we can make future improvements as well. Overall, we were able to save time, ensure compliance, and overall increase our ability to continue to obtain grant funding from our federal and state partners. And that's all I have for you tonight.
Very well done.
Thank you.
It's not easy to stand up there and put it out there like that. I appreciate that very much. I think that one of the last slides, 13, says pretty much all. Updated and expanded city policy with step-by-step guidance, what improvements. I think that's outstanding. And I think you've done a great job in presenting it as well, Member Stokel.
Yep. I personally have been looking forward to this presentation, so I'm so happy to hear what you have to say. I mentioned this at a council meeting. You probably did not hear it, but when I was at a Florida League of Cities annual conference, somebody actually saw my name tag from Titusville and just spoke so highly of you, just working with you. So I wanted to tell you that. Also, one of the things when I first got on council, and I kind of mentioned this from time to time, when trying to lower taxes and try to increase our revenue, I'm always like, can we find a grant? Can we find a grant? So this project particularly makes me very excited to see. I did have a question. So I'm familiar with SharePoint as well, that I'm just curious. So when you're assigning, when you're saying that it's speeding up the approval process, are you able to assign tasks and then that person is like sent an email notification? Is that what's happening?
Yes, the automation assesses the responses that are put into the application approval request form and determines the levels of approval that are required. And then it will send the appropriate notifications to the department head, the city manager. The city manager has then the option to say that this particular grant will need council approval before application. And with the internal staff, they're notified both by email and through Microsoft Teams.
Okay, that's great. I'm also happy to see you partnering with Florida League of Cities, as I saw their grant assistance program rolled out. I think we were one of the first to jump in and get a part of that, so thank you for that. I did have one question I was going to ask, and you may or may not know. Are you aware of any cybersecurity grants that we may have applied for and or received? And the reason I am asking is Florida League of Cities is actually doing research on that right now to see and gather what cities are getting or what they're applying for to try to help out municipalities more.
Absolutely. The Florida Technology Task Force, I believe is what it's called, has a cybersecurity technical assistance grant, which the city has applied for.
Okay, perfect. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Member Cole.
You know, I've said this before in the past, that I must have completely slept through my civics class in high school, because there's so many things that go on behind the scene to make a city work. Things that aren't exotic, like maybe the police department or fire department, but all of these things go together to make it a working machine. And again, to amplify what Mayor Diesel said, thank you for your hard work.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you for everything.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I would say that I don't think our citizens in general know how much we do in terms of grants, seeking grants. And I think this is a good presentation that hopefully people can watch and rewatch, because there's a lot there and a lot of work done. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor, if I could, just to follow up on that, we have currently a little less than $30 million of active grants that we are managing, and we've applied for $10 million in addition.
Say that sort of again, $30 million is in,
We're currently managing $30 million in grants. That means we've been approved and are actually implementing those grants.
that's
And
outstanding.
we've applied for an additional $10 million.
Awesome. Thank you very much, City Manager.
On to item C. The next will be a presentation of the all-inclusive park at Sandpoint Park. The North Brevard Rotary Club will give a presentation as an update for the all-inclusive park, and I believe Mr. Snodgrass will be the presenter.
Good evening. I'm Jason Snodgrass. I'm with the North Brevard Rotary Group, and I would like to thank the City Council for the opportunity to present tonight on this wonderful project that will be occurring at Sandpoint Park here in North Brevard, an all-inclusive playground. And I believe if I can figure out how to work this, I will.
If you do, let me know.
All right. Well,
And you're not the first one that had that same issue, by the way.
there we go.
There we go.
All right. Okay, let's back up one. There it is. Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to introduce our North Brevard Rotary Group. I've got a big group of them here with me. It's a wonderful group. We meet at night, and we've started this process about two and a half years ago, and I'd just like to try to give you guys a little bit of a description of this playground. And it will be an extension to the existing playground. It will not be it's set aside. It will be an extension to. There'll be two locations, one to the west side, which will have several pieces of equipment. One of them is a musical instruments, which all the Mr. Diesel, being in the school system, he knows what autism,
Yep.
sounds, things like that mean to those kids. And then we also have another piece that will be on that side that is a swing. It will be two pieces, one that will have a swing set that you can get an adult on there with it, and it's called a pocket, or I mean a glide swinger. And you can have both a handicap, wheelchair access, and also you will also be able to have an adult sitting with that person in that particular piece of equipment. So you will have both the opportunity for a brother or a sister to be in there with them, or a friend, things like that. Also, we have a global motion, which is a spinner, and it has inside the global motion, there'll be an area for the kids that may not be able to climb up to the top of it. They can get in down there, may have a little physical ability not to be able to climb to the top, but then they'll still be able to play with their buddies that can climb to the top and create that. And then also we do have, which is really an item that's not, it's for everybody, but Mr. Mount thought it was a very good idea. Now we all did, which is the rocket. And we're going to have a little swinging rocket. And it's a good thing for maybe sponsorships. We may put SpaceX on there one day, or something in that nature. You never know. So we'll be looking for that kind of thing. But the two pieces, there'll be a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces. They'll have a hard surface with a rubber on top. And then they'll be accessible from two locations, from the existing play area, but also from the hard surface, which is the asphalt path that goes around there. We started 2 years ago, like I had said, and this is the two areas. I should have gone to this already, but that's your two areas. These are your play equipment areas, the different pieces. There's the global motion. That's your swing set that will have both handicap accessible. And then these are your musical instruments and the rocket and stuff. But we started 2 years ago, and we have a Space Coast Brew Fest coming up on October 7th, as you can see. We also received, we received a grant, and I would like to thank Councilman Cole and Councilman Nelson with that help getting that grant. And we more than got onto our way. And the timeline that's coming up, I'd like to tell y'all a little bit about our timeline. I think that's our last slide there, but the timeline is October 23rd. We would like to break ground. November 6th, the play equipment will be delivered. I would like to also, at our beer festival, we would like to invite the city council out for a groundbreaking. It's a little ceremonial groundbreaking. If y'all would like to, we would get with Mr. Cole and get y'all that scheduled up and let each and every one of you know about that. And there are several thank yous I would like to throw out while I'm doing this. One of them was Rodney Honeycutt, which is an engineer. He helped us out greatly with the engineering and the process through the city of Titusville. Also would like to say thank you to the city of Titusville. You know, a lot of times building departments, I'm a contractor, they get a bum rap. A lot of times it was very smooth. I want to appreciate and thank the city for that. Went through engineering and the building department, and we have our permit and we're ready to break ground. And if you guys had any other questions, as you can see also, there's several other people on that brochure that have donated their time and money. So if you have any questions for me.
I would just start off by saying thank you. I don't think it's a question. It's just a matter of, this actually came before us with a different group before. And and you guys have clearly taken the ball and run with it and have dates and times and unbelievable. I love the, not that I'm going to fit in any of those, but I love all the little stuff you got there.
Yeah.
I love the rocket idea. I mean, that's so apropos. So exciting. I can't wait to get down there. And you're right. I was actually it didn't matter that I was the administrator for the ESE department. I was down there every day anyway, because it put joy in my heart every day to be down there. I just can't tell you the tenacity and the bravery I see these kids work with every single day. And with that, Member Cole.
I just want to say that, you know, this has been a labor of love for our Rotary Club. And as Jason said, we've been working on this for 2.5 years. And there's been a lot of hard work, and Jason and Don have done yeoman efforts to get this. And even though we got that grant, it's amazing. I was amazed at the cost of the equipment. The equipment is very, very expensive. And we've also got donated labor from Jason and Don to help us. Because although we have the $300,000 grant, and we've had our last 2 brew fests, which every fundraiser that we have is going towards this project. And as if we raise money in excess of what we need, we're going to continue to add on to that, because nowhere did I ever in my fondest dream realize that there were so many people that needed this type of equipment. We were, in our first brew fest that we had it at the Harley-Davidson in Titus Landing, and there were 2 people that came up to me, and they said, and they were people that were challenged, and they said, the guy had tears in his eyes, because he said, it's so good that you're doing this project. So although I'm a part of it, I'm going to say thank you to my Rotary Club for the things that you're doing and the dedication that you've had towards getting this done.
Outstanding. Member Nelson.
I'm just going to say you guys are great. I remember 6 years ago,
Is that
When-
what it was?
5, 6 years ago, when these
I knew it was a
people
while
came
ago.
in and they were talking to us
I thought we were moving.
about an all-inclusive park. And I mean, the one guy was crying.
Yeah,
And a long time coming, but you guys got it done. So very proud of you. Very proud of Rotary.
very proud.
Well, this will bring something to North Brevard for all the families and to play together, no matter their physical or mental ability.
Yeah.
And that's the idea.
And that's a really good point. The families can play together.
That's key.
And I appreciate that, Vice Mayor.
Yes, just as I look out and see some of the faces out there as fellow Rotarians, as I'm not part of your club, but as a Rotarian, it is, as a Rotarian, as a Rotarian, I'm just proud to be part and in the whole thing with all of you guys. And thanks for the hard work. And that's what being a Rotarian is all about. Thank you.
Well, I think the final word is just thank you. And
Thank you.
I know that our Rotary Club will be meeting and thinking about where can we do a little fundraising for. We talked about that today.
That's
So
a
I'll leave that alone here.
possibility.
That's a whole nother meeting.
And they're also
In another
looking
place,
for
in another group.
volunteers.
Thank you all again. And
Thank you
there
so
is
much.
always donations accepted, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
Keep that in mind.
our morning club will be talking. Thank you so much. City Manager.
And if you guys want to depart, okay. Next item, Mayor and Council, is item 4D, which is the inclusionary zoning presentation. Staff will provide a presentation to describe inclusionary zoning. No actions required. Mr. Parrish is the presenter.
We're taking a brief second here to see them off. All right. Rich. Look who's left. We
Evening,
are
Council.
at the inclusionary zoning presentation by staff.
So I've included the slides I'm going to present to you in your packet. I wanted to start first with what affordable housing is really considered. It's actually restricted housing units. That's not just affordable on a market rate. These are units that will be restricted in some way by deed restriction or some kind of control on the property that would only be allowed to be or qualify for people who are qualified for certain incomes. And usually these units are restricted for several years, sometimes up to 30 years, depending. So I wanted to start with what is exclusionary housing. The question was, or the request was for me to give you a presentation on what inclusionary housing, but I want to start with what the opposite is. Exclusionary housing is what basically what we have, or exclusionary zoning rather, is what we have in our code right now. A lot of cities adopted what's called a Euclidean zoning categories. We have that. So we have commercial zoning districts, residential zoning districts, industrial zoning districts. They're exclusive. They are only allowed certain uses in them. So they don't allow for mixture of these types of uses in the same zoning district typically. Inclusionary housing is kind of the opposite of that. Another description of what exclusionary is, it excludes land use controls based on the zoning. It directly decreases or limits housing supply in residential areas. So for certain zoning districts, only single family is allowed. We have a lot of zoning districts that are like that right now. And some others, only multifamily is allowed. They're critical. Some critics of Euclidean zoning or exclusionary zoning state that it actually increases the cost to build new housing, and it limits the use of existing housing based on strict limitations, such as some zoning districts only allow mobile homes, or some zoning districts don't allow duplexes but only single family. Inclusionary zoning is the idea of including some of these different types of housing in the same zoning district in the same areas. So for example, we brought up with you before the idea of missing middle housing. It's the idea that most jurisdictions will only build single-family homes, or what you really get are multifamily apartments, but you don't get what's in between. So a lot of communities used to build duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, small town homes, or even small lots. And so right now, a lot of communities are kind of reevaluate their zoning and allow this more missing middle type housing in their cities. So according to HUD, inclusionary zoning is a practice that refers to any kind of policy ordinance that requires or encourages developers to set aside a certain percentage of housing units. So for example, what this means is that if we have a new developer come in with a multifamily development of some sort, they would be required to set aside a small percentage of their units to be restricted for affordable housing, and those small number of units would be restricted to those who qualify under a certain income. And then they would be deed restricted, or some kind of instrument would restrict it for a certain amount of time, up to usually 15, maybe 20, in some cases 30 years. And the idea behind this is to allow for an income mixture. So you don't want to exclude or delegate a certain area of your city for low-income housing only, because that brings a lot of problems on its own. What the idea behind inclusionary housing is that you are mixing different incomes in the same development. I've included slides in your packet that came from the city of Gainesville. During some of our research, we found several communities have included or adopted an inclusionary zoning ordinance. And the city of Gainesville, I guess, is going through this process right now. They had several slides in here. I just want to point out some of the things that they've identified through their study. So the first issue is inclusionary housing, or I'm sorry, it can include additional density, for example, to allow for a developer to set aside a certain number of units for affordable units. And so the illustration on the right side of the screen there, you'll see, have on market rate units, and then you allow that developer to increase the number of units and then set aside some of those units for affordable housing. So they're getting something back when you're asking them to set aside a certain percentage of units for affordable restriction of some sort. And that's a density bonus. The city of Gainesville also had on the website, as part of their public engagement process, what I discovered was that they found in their review of their zoning districts throughout the city is that the majority of land is set aside for single-family units only. And that's pretty true of a lot of jurisdictions, including our own. One issue behind this is that you will find when we have a minimum lot size, and a typical lot size in the city of Titusville per our zoning code is about 6,500 square feet. And then you have a minimum building or living size. So we have a typical size right now of single-family homes that are 1,200 square feet. That can prohibit or discourage affordable housing type units. The idea behind this is that in this scenario I'm showing on the slide here is that Gainesville identified an issue where developers would maximize the build-out potential of a single-family lot. And you can see that in that image there on the middle of the slide there in your packet. But if you allow some flexibility, some reduced setbacks, and a bigger building envelope, and you allow more units on a particular lot, on that same size lot, then it might allow a developer to put a bigger building there and then divide it up into more units. Some communities are experimenting with the idea of having single-family and multifamily developments, small type developments, in the same neighborhood. On the next slide, what this is illustrating is that, again, going back to minimum lot dimensions, that can actually prohibit or discourage affordable housing type units because it's very expensive when you have a minimum lot size. It sets a price. Whereas the city of Gainesville was exploring with this idea of allowing smaller lots in standard subdivisions. And so you have an increase in density, smaller lots. In this case, there's still detached single-family homes as a means of bringing the price of lots down so that they can be built on and be more affordable. I just wanted to include that. I went over the slides because I want to give you an idea of what some other communities are dealing with and how they're addressing this or researching this issue. And so those are some of the issues that come up when we talk about inclusionary zoning and inclusionary housing. Next slide, I'm just going to go through some aspects of what inclusionary housing, inclusionary zoning means in the state of Florida. In 2019, the state legislature approved House Bill 7103. I've included the statute in your packet. The city has the option to adopt an inclusionary housing ordinance. An example of this is the city of Jupiter adopted a similar ordinance and has right off the back, a set aside where every multifamily development has to set aside 6% of that development towards affordable housing. The city may require residential developers to contribute to a housing fund. The fund can be used to construct new housing units of some sort, whether it's multifamily, duplexes, or it could be single family, however we want to set it up, or to use that money to rehab existing housing for affordable units. The city may also adopt what's called a linkage fee. That is essentially an impact fee. So right now we have an impact fee of a certain number of cents or a certain number of dollars per square foot for new development. That is a police impact fee, another one for fire impact fee, and so on, and libraries or parks, whatever that might be. And we also have one for transportation. What this is suggesting is that we would go through, if we decide to go down this route, we'd do a study to come up with what is a rational fee, and then adopt that, and that would be imposed based on a square foot of new development. And that is typically applied to non-residential development. I do want to emphasize that when we talk about inclusionary housing, we're talking about typically what properties that are already zoned for residential. I know there was I know there's, because of the other agenda item we have on tonight about Live Local, that ordinance is related to allowing affordable housing to address this year's Senate Bill 102 about allowing affordable housing units on commercial or industrial or mixed-use zoning districts. But what this is talking about is something a little bit different. This is about trying to find some kind of incentive that local communities can utilize to allow for affordable units on existing residentially zoned property, or to allow it or require it potentially when someone comes in and asks to rezone a piece of property to residential, that this could be applied as well in that case. I did include a couple of examples of how that linkage fee works. The city of Coconut Creek has a linkage fee depending on the type of use of 37 cents per square foot or up to $2.42 per square foot. The city of Jupiter has a right off the back $1 per square foot linkage fee. That's their impact fee for affordable housing units. Lastly, if we do go forward with coming up with an inclusionary housing ordinance and or linkage fee, that we should have some kind of offset. That can include, and these are just a couple of examples, or many others, a density bonus or reducing or waiving certain fees, including other types of impact fees. Other incentives that could be utilized or adopted, and I included in an article in your packet that kind of gives you some of these ideas, include reducing the number of parking spaces that might be required, and also when doing something called a value capture, a land value capture. So for example, someone's trying to rezone a piece of property to multifamily, the increased value between what it's currently zoned to what it can be zoned can be utilized to calculate that offset. So what I mean by offset, I mean if you require a developer to set aside a certain number of units or percent of units to be affordable housing, what you're really offsetting is the cost that they would otherwise get as far as revenue from those units. And so you're supposed to offset that way in some manner, whatever that might be, based on using one of these or a combination of these incentives. But before going forward, the first thing we would need to do is do a study to figure that out. Now, I do have a few examples from other communities that have done this. Daytona Beach is actually going through this process right now, and they did a very exhaustive study and a public engagement process in order to get to this. And the city of Jupiter and the other Coconut Creek have already adopted theirs. There is an advisability on your regular meeting asking you for formal direction on how you would like us to go forward with this. With that, I'll try to answer any questions you have.
First thing that comes to mind and came to mind while you were speaking was there need to be a study because there's so much here. There are so many options that you see from other cities. Jupiter, Coconut Creek, just so many options that there's no way without a more in-depth study would I really understand exactly what the ramifications of each one of these options are. And that's, if we were to move forward with this, I would say we need, as you just said, we'd need a study. Member Cole.
My question is of a general nature, and that is, what is the actual definition of affordable housing? Is there a limit on rental income? I mean, I'm clueless.
The statute does have a definition. It's based on income, so it could be 60, 80, or 120% of area median income.
Okay, but the rent that the occupant would pay, is that similar to what a Section 8 home would do?
That's possible.
I mean, how are the rents, I guess my question is, how are the rents set, and how do we have control over what the developer or the owner of the property charges for the housing?
So the ordinance, if we adopt it, could set a particular area median income that they would be geared towards. So I'll give you an example. We did this recently with ARPA money that we used to try and incentivize the development of affordable housing project recently, and we included a request that they provide units to certain incomes distributed between 60, 80, and 120% of area median income. So some units would be set aside for those families or those individuals that have an income that's at area medium of 50%, for example. So that's an example of a program that we established to help incentivize that particular development. What this would do would be an ordinance that would set aside those guidelines.
But I guess my question is still, how do we control the rent that the individuals will pay? Because obviously they are low income and they can't afford but so much. So how is there a scale of a proportionate scale from their income to what they would pay as rent?
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Robinson would probably better answer that for me, but.
Yes, if you look at it in the way that the housing that is going to be set aside is for affordable housing, period. It is based, the rent that is charged for that unit is based on the income of the individual, not the value of the house. Okay, so for instance, if you only make $100 a month and you are extremely low income, you may get that unit for $2 a month. Okay? Or you may get it for 50% of your income, which would be $50 a month.
So how is the owner of the property incentivized to want to do this other than what we're saying?
That is what we have to give them to research, so that it's a lot of things that are done with tax credit and stuff like this. This is excluded from that. So in bringing developers in to do this, now you have to incentivize them to come in to do a project like this. So with them studying it, it's some things, tax credits and not tax credits, some things that we can waiver within the city jurisdiction that will help incentivize the developer for doing a project like that.
But in Section 8, though, isn't it like the person pays rent and it's supplemented by the
Section 8 is Section 8 are built and scheduled by HUD itself. HUD has the formula, and right now HUD is paying up to 125% of area income for Section 8 housing. And Section 8 housing is that if a owner wants to turn his home over to Section 8, he or she has to meet all of the HUD Section 8 requirements to put that house, and that is between the owner and the renter. Okay, totally different.
Yeah, and at this point, I think we're a cart before the horse. I think that we have a lot of studying to do, and I think it's a good question. But I think that's going to be something that we'll go into great detail later. Member Nelson.
Well, I halfway lost my train of thought with that, but I did have a question for Brad. Brad, on that first slide, you were saying that exclusionary zoning increases the cost to build new housing. Why?
So the criticism about exclusionary housing is that a lot of cities will have a minimum lot size, so it actually sets a price. So if every lot, the smallest lot that you can build on for a single-family home, for example, is 6,500 square feet, that sets the price for your area. So you don't allow options for smaller lots and smaller types of housing.
Okay, to decrease the cost. Okay, then I have a question for Joe. This is a Joe question. Okay, so maybe I got this wrong, but I was always under the impression that if we're talking about what kind of rent is charged for affordable housing, it is a certain percentage of the average income in the area.
Yeah, yes, HUD has a chart standard that if the area median income is a certain number, that's what you can charge. But if you're using government dollars, HUD dollars or city dollars, the city can sit back and say that we'll give you these dollars or let you have this grant if you build housing for 50% below area median income.
Okay.
And that sets the standard.
Okay. And do we know what our average median income is?
The area, I don't know it for this year, but I would imagine for a family of five, the area median income is probably $60,000 a year.
Okay, so we're not talking about no rent or $2.
Well, it all depends on what level that you want to go. If you're talking about extremely low, or extremely, what you're building them for.
And last question, Brad, do you have any feelings about which way might be the best way to handle this?
So the other examples or the communities I've looked at, they did a study to figure out what the issue is first.
Okay.
To find out about their housing stock, the cost, size of their housing stock, who's there, what's the need, and then from that point, figure out what tools are most appropriate for their community to address that need.
Okay.
So until we have that kind of study, I don't have a good answer as what's the best approach.
And all are good questions, and the more I listen to them, the more I'm like, well, we really don't know yet. And I'm going to wait for the professor, if we go that direction, to come back with some study information and insight. And he's given us some here, but mostly what he's gotten here so far is Jupiter did this and Coconut Creek did that. Member Stokel?
Yep. So I feel like, and we've talked about affordable housing before several times, I feel like, up here. Part of me was thinking that when we were transitioning some of our zoning into the PUD, that lowering the minimum lot size, that was also part of our strategy, not maybe labeled as affordable housing, but kind of to help. Would that be correct or accurate? Like that missing middle piece, I feel like we've already kind of been working on.
We've been trying to work on it somewhat with the comp plan amendment and the zoning overlay changes that we're been proposing to you as far as the comp plan update with Kane and Associates and Kimberly Horn. Because that kind of some of the things that they've suggested, and it does address, how you can incorporate missing middle housing in different neighborhoods and areas. I think with a PUD tool that we have, that has been utilized primarily to allow someone to develop a single family subdivision on a piece of property that has a lot of environmental issues. And so that has allowed someone to be able to consolidate and a lot of the units into certain areas to protect other areas of the property and be able to have any lot size they want. So right now the trend is to allow those subdivisions have been 40, 50 feet wide lots with small houses on them. I don't know if the prices, even in those scenarios or those examples, are anywhere near affordable what we're trying to get at, that anybody's trying to get at with these tools. Because even those homes are above even 120% median income.
Yeah, and that kind of leads into my other question. Do we have any way to track to see how many of our citizens are eligible for affordable housing, if they're applying, and what that need is compared to what we have available?
I'd have to speak with Neighborhood Services to find out what kind of information they have specifically for our area. So I don't have that information ready for you tonight.
No, that's okay. And I was just thinking, even through like Jupiter and Coconut Creek, I know they're down South Florida where property values are extremely high, much higher compared to us. And I could foresee them having definite affordable housing issues in those areas. So it makes sense for them to start to implement some of these things. I just don't know where our need kind of is in relation to that to see what we should potentially look at. So, okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, to add that, the Housing Authority probably has the best and most accurate number on that. And what you can do, and the city manager may have, if you can get what the average income that it is for the city of Titusville, and the people in the city, you can figure out what the area, what part of the population that fit that category. And it normally runs about 15% of the population.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. It seems to me, and I started off this way, we move forward with the next meeting, it would be to have, you could get with us more about what studies you'd need to do, but there's definitely, and I appreciate you putting down what some of the other cities are trying to do. That gives me a visual, an idea of what could be out there. But, at this point, I don't think we have any solid answer. Here's what we're going to do. We'll cut the property size. We'll do this with that. I think we'll have to have some game planning and study. So with that, thank you so much, Mr. Parrish. City Manager.
In the last agenda item, there are letters of appreciation from the fire department, and I'd like to read those names for the record.
Please, thank you.
Letters of appreciation were received from the following employees of the Fire and Rescue Department: firefighter Matthew Byrne, firefighter EMT Jennifer Robbins, firefighter paramedic Ronald Smith Jr.
Thank you, sir. Petitions and requests from the public. Step up.
Schiffelo, the historic Norwood House. I just wanted to kind of address things in general, but specifically to the inclusionary zoning, and also to the vision for tomorrow that is being proposed by Kimley Horn. And I want to know, why are incentives to developers so detrimental to current residents? And I'm speaking about one of the incentives is higher density, which is bad for the current residents to be crowded visually and more traffic and stress on the environment and on the infrastructure that's existing. And one of the other incentives to developers is lower impact fees, which leaves nothing to improve the infrastructure for all the added people and all the added traffic and all the added sewage and all the added demand for water. And I would just like to encourage everybody to start thinking outside the box and think of something else we can offer these developers that isn't going to hurt the people that already live here. Please, save us.
I appreciate that. I think those are just ideas being thrown around from other cities, but yeah,
They're constant. That
So-
it appears, excuse me for arguing with you, Mayor,
that's
but
an
it appears over and over. Lower impact fees for developers, an incentive, higher density
Well,
as an
that's what they were
incentive.
doing.
And if you noticed Gainesville, the city, they allowed that developer to have 4 extra units for only 3
Yeah, I
affordable
did.
units.
I saw that.
What's wrong with that equation? I'm not going to take it.
You're good. You're good. Next one. I thought you were going to pass.
No, not this
No?
time. Thank you. Stan Johnston, I'm here to speak about an email that I sent you today. And I'm also thinking about Rotary Club was here, and I want to recognize is that we've been over this Rotary 4-way test for the things that we think, say, and do. And as far as I can see, it's the city of Titusville is certainly not following that rule, that test very well. I'm going to thank Brad Parrish for meeting with me March the 10th and showing me that the city recognizes that the right-of-way for Elizabeth Avenue is 50 feet wide rather than 53 feet wide as represented by the survey that's approved by the city for SNJ Oaks. That's a pretty big deal, and especially thank you to Mr. Robinson for going out there, and we had a field visit for about 20 minutes or so on the property. I submitted notes to the city and community development. But what's going on is I've just filed an affidavit titled Affidavit of Gross Negligence by the City of Titusville to continue to approve the survey plans and preliminary plat for SNJ Oaks that city knows to have an erroneous survey by Snow. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. And I underline two things. One is, in summary, I'm shocked that city surveyor Snow and engineer Fisher continue to approve the survey, which is openly disputed by Brad Parrish, city's right-of-way surveys, and coastal survey. That's one underline. Other sentence I underlined was, therefore, Snow's survey is a boundary dispute with city's right-of-way and properties to the west and the south. That's 4 properties to the west and 4 properties to the south, boundary disputes. And you have a boundary dispute also for the right-of-way of Elizabeth Avenue, a 3-foot bust. The city's, the survey is completely wrong, and why in the world the city would continue to approve the survey? That's been, since March 10th, it's been a long time, but it's been even a longer time since July of 2020. 2021. It's not good. So here's what I wrote. I wrote, what we have is, you can just drive by and you can see that there's, the survey's just not appropriate. There's overhead electric and all kinds of problems. Why does the city approve a survey? Especially when disputing the city's survey, and now that 9 boundary disputes, court will be a circus of clowns. Where will the king of clowns, the ringmaster, Scott Larice, be? Because he's been called many times on this, times by me, by property owners, and so forth. We're just not getting through. So I'm asking you to do something. Maybe you should terminate city manager. Maybe that'd be the best thing to do. Thank you.
And that'll do it. Any other position requests from the previous meeting?
That's it.
All right,
Thank you.
good. All right. City manager, anything? Council? We're going to go 10 minutes because I never get you guys back in 5. So 20 minutes till we'll begin the next meeting. Meeting adjourned.